I'm Lucy.
And I'm Jennifer.
You're listening to Everything I Know About.
Each week, we share everything we know about a new topic, equipped with some internet research and a little too much exposure to pop culture.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome to the final episode in our seasonal fall series. We pretty much ran out of ideas, so this is the last one. And today we are talking about cuffing season, which I feel like is actually perfect to end on because it is just starting now. For those who aren't as familiar, cuffing season refers to the period of time between October, late fall, and March, early spring. It is when single people start looking for love. And I had first heard of this term actually in college and thought it was more about long-term relationships. But when I was looking at the definition to do research for this episode, it seems like a lot of people see cuffing season as a time when people look for short-term relationships that literally end when spring comes around.
I looked up what cuffing season is too, and there was like a Reddit post about this. Did you see this Reddit post?
No, it's funny. There was like scientific articles about this. So that's more what I was referencing, but let's hear the Reddit post.
I know. There were so many scientific articles about cuffing season, like psychology articles.
Yes.
There was so much to draw from. I thought we were going to be reading like think pieces and Vogue and stuff, which definitely some of those, but like it was mostly psychology articles. Yeah. But no, it was funny. I saw this Reddit article and somebody was like, cuffing season is when people couple up before the winter party season, like Halloween to St. Patrick's Day. Essentially, it is the time of year when people decide if they want to buy gifts, introduce to friends and family, celebrate holidays, and take lots of photos together. And then somebody else commented and was like, I totally thought it was about having a +1 as a warm body / companionship because it gets cold and dreary and depressing in the winter months. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of how I thought of it too. There is, I feel like, an element to like the holidays coming around. Definitely something about the holidays plus the cold weather. But the situationship aspect of it, I don't totally associate it with cuffing season.
Right. I was surprised by this too, because cuffing season, like back in college, school starts obviously in September. And then literally 1 month in, there'd be fall break. For Michigan, that was mid-October. And what would happen is a lot of people would break up with their SOs from back home over fall break.
Ooh.
So a bunch of people would come back from fall break and they would be single. And then as the semester wore on, and, you know, in Michigan, obviously the winters are quite tough. It is very dark very early and extremely cold. And it was just this thing on campus that everybody would talk about, like, oh, it's cuffing season. Are you looking for your person? But I always interpreted that as like, you're looking for an actual relationship rather than something short term that's going to expire when spring rolls around.
Yeah, I never viewed it that way either. I was like, oh, this is like people trying to cuff up for real.
Right.
Like,
literally handcuffs, like marriage, right?
That's what I think. Maybe just because we're like relationship minded people.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it.
Oh, I have a quick fall update before we go on. I got a cat.
Wait, you got a cat?
Yeah.
What?
Like 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
It's a full black cat with yellow eyes. And you know the movie Hocus Pocus?
Of course.
Yeah, I've always wanted a black cat named Binks, so I named him Binks.
Oh,
so he's my
cute
black cat named Binks that I got during Halloween season.
Oh my gosh. Wait, how did this even happen? Did you rescue him?
So a friend from my book club, her neighbor has 3 cats already, but they've been seeing this cat like living in the insulation in a under construction house next to them. And then it was hanging out on their porch for months and they've been trying to find a home for it. And they were going to take it to the shelter the next day. So yeah, I was like, we'll take it. We don't want it to go to a shelter, especially because black cats have the highest kill rate at shelters because people are superstitious about them.
Well, that's so great that you have him now.
Is he adjusting well? Sweetie. Yes. He hid for 2 days. And then the end of the second day, he's like coming out and like now he just wants to snuggle. Like he lets me pick him up already. Just wants to snuggle all the time. He's such a cutie. He still has his balls though, which is really funny. Like I've never seen a cat with balls and they're like huge.
Oh,
it's so funny. Because I always just see neutered cats.
Yeah.
It's hysterical.
Oh, that's so funny. Dude, Rooney's balls, like, let me tell you. So Rooney's my dog. He's 7 pounds, so he's extremely small. My first ever dog. So I wasn't very familiar with the neutering process other than knowing like you should do it between 6 months to a year. So we scheduled his appointment like very far out and everything. But then I was like, I like couldn't find his balls. And I didn't think he had balls. I looked for them. I literally was like, I don't think he has balls. Because also he pees like a girl dog. He doesn't lift his leg. So I was
He is
like,
kind of feminine. He has a feminine
I
energy.
know, definitely. And I was like, oh, maybe he doesn't have balls. Maybe he's a hermaphrodite. And then one day I did find them finally. I didn't realize they were so close to his butthole. They're really
Yeah.
back there on animals. Yeah.
That's what I was surprised with too, because it's just like they like turn around and then there's balls there. I was like, I thought it was a tumor at first. I was like, oh no, those are balls.
Yeah.
My brother's cat actually was a hermaphrodite cat, intersex cat. So they thought it was a girl forever. And then it got really, really sick and they took it to the vet and it
Oh,
had a urinary tract infection and kidney stones. And they're like, yeah, this happens a lot in male cats. And they're like, well, it's not a
yeah.
boy. It doesn't have balls. They're like, no, they're inside his body. It's an intersex cat.
Yeah. I literally thought that was Rooney. And then one day I discovered his balls and they were literally so small. They were like just hidden under a patch of fur. Because Rooney's like, he's a toy bossy doodle. So he's very curly, fuzzy fur. And they're literally the cutest things I've ever seen. I've never seen cuter balls.
I'm picturing like peanut M&M size.
Totally. Peanut M&Ms. Little peanut M&Ms snuggled in a little fur pouch.
Banks is like golf ball. Two golf
Okay.
ball.
Yeah. It's big.
So from animal balls to cuffing season. I don't even know how to transition this. Let's just like hop right
Yeah,
into
it's
it.
all right. There's no transition. Speaking of reproduction, so the first question I had after hearing about cuffing season in the popular culture was, is this real? Like, is this just a popular culture term that we kind of invented? Or is there something about humans, whether that's our biology, psychology, evolution, that is actually driving us to want to get into relationships or even just hook up in the winter? And there actually are documented seasonal fluctuations in partner seeking behavior, and scientists have studied this. So, when it comes to relationships, data scientists looked at relationship status declaration on Facebook.
Oh, that's so interesting.
So interesting, right? So, this was in 2012. They looked at 3 age ranges. So, people under 25, between 25 and 44, and then 45 and above. And they looked at specific months within the year and mapped out if a specific month was above or below average in terms of net relationship gain. And across all of these 3 age groups, as soon as you hit fall, you start to see a lot more relationship gain. And that lasts through early spring.
Oh, so it's literally the duration of
It's
cuffing
literally
season.
the duration of cuffing season. And then
Oh my God.
those summer months, like June, July, August, it's a net relationship decline. Pretty
Hot girl summer.
significant too. Exactly. And like, I think when you're declaring a relationship on Facebook, it's pretty serious. Back in 2012, when more people were doing it, you're not going to put like a situationship as your like significant other on Facebook.
No, that's like you're hard launching.
Exactly.
That is the hard launch.
Exactly. So I see this as definitely there's something to this like serious relationship claim with cuffing season.
I forgot about the Facebook relationship thing. It's like pretty diabolical that you would have to end the relationship on Facebook when it ends. I forgot that you had to do that. Like, it's one thing to announce it, but then to be like, oh, fuck, like, when do we call it quits? Because that's when it's really over. I completely forgot about that. Wow.
That was such a big deal. It was literally called Facebook Official.
Yeah.
The other thing I then looked at was sex and hooking up and what's happening throughout the year with that. So there's a 2013 study where researchers looked at changes in Google search trends over a 5-year period for topics related to pornography, prostitution, and mate seeking. And mate seeking is basically like dating app searches. They found distinct and predictable seasonal fluctuations. Pornography searches are on a 6-month harmonic cycle, meaning it literally goes like up and down super consistently, peaking every June and December.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's not what I was expecting.
What were you thinking?
I thought it was going to go down during cuffing season and like up when everybody's single. Unless you have a 100% success rate, though, like, I don't know, you might need to supplement a little bit.
Right. You're feeling horny. You're just feeling horny, right? I mean, summer doesn't really surprise me because I feel like I associate summer with hookup. But yeah, I guess like people go to porn to feel better in general. Maybe they're feeling lonely over Christmas.
True. I want to know how they got funding for that research, like what the proposal was.
I feel like sex research often gets funding. Humans are just like obsessed. We want to know more about that, you know? Except for unless it's only about women's sex lives, then it gets no funding.
Yeah, facts.
Prostitution was similar with peaks in January and July, though the July peak is a lot bigger than January. And then for mate-seeking behavior, which is searches for like OkCupid, Match, eHarmony, that also peaks in January and July. And these results align with past research that has found similar seasonal trends of births, abortions, STIs, and condom sales. Yes. So
Hmm.
we as humans definitely seem to have two peaks around when we are trying to get frisky.
You know what? That's funny too, because most babies are born in the late summer.
Hmm.
So exactly 8, 9, 10 months after this little peak.
Yep, exactly. The reasons for the summer peak and the winter peak are really different. So I'm going to focus on winter first. Research suggests that winter cuffing season has more to do with our biology than summer. Studies have found that testosterone levels fluctuate seasonally in men, peaking in the winter months. And testosterone obviously has a strong correlation with libido in men. In women, fertility tends to be higher in the middle of winter
Really?
as well. So our
Oh.
biology is sending us messages. Your hormones are literally changing with the seasons. It's not just that, your brain chemicals change. And this I feel like more people are familiar with, that our brains produce less serotonin in the winter due to lower levels of sunlight. And that is what leads people to experience the winter blues or, on the more extreme, seasonal affective disorder, which to compensate for, people try to seek out a relationship or
Mhm.
buy a sun lamp. One or the other. And in general, we feel lonelier in the winter because it's just so cold outside. People are more likely to stay at home, socialize less, they go to work and come directly home, and we just feel more isolated.
Mhm.
So all that like very straightforward. Here's where it gets really interesting. I looked also at like evolutionary factors and saw in this article it said cuddling literally keeps the chill away. Humans evolved to draw closer to others during periods of harsher environmental conditions as a way to share resources and cope with food scarcity. I was like, yeah, it makes sense. For me, I was picturing penguins. Have you seen Happy Feet?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
You know,
have.
like when they all in the winter, they all have to stay close for warmth.
Yeah, so
So
precious.
cute. So literally my brain already went there. And then I literally found a research study that compared humans to penguins. And I went
No
down this
way.
whole rabbit hole.
Your intuition.
I know. It was a 2018 study, and it's literally called the Human Penguin Project.
What?
I was like, wow,
What?
perfect.
Oh my god.
Its findings were pretty shocking. It found that people with diverse social networks, which they measured by the number of strong relationships in a person's life, are better at regulating their core body temperature in the cold.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
huh.
Hmm.
Which is funny because you don't associate colder climates with particularly warm, tight-knit communities. I associate warmer climates with that type of culture, which is very interesting.
You mean like the Caribbean and the welcoming environments there or something?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't necessarily think of like Scandinavia as like
Sure.
tight-knit.
Warm
Like,
people.
right.
Well, maybe people in Scandinavia, though they're far from the equator, maybe they don't have a lot of tight social connections.
But you would think that they would have evolutionarily developed that because they need to regulate their body temperature. I don't know.
Right.
That's
Well, so I had a lot of these questions. I was like, how does one even come to this conclusion, right? And so I looked at the study, and the way they ran the study was they used an AI technique called supervised machine learning. This went over my head a bit, but basically they like use this technique to identify which variables and how much they best predicted core body temperature. And the result was a strong relationship between people's environmental temperature, which is literally the distance from the equator, to your point,
mm,
their levels of social integration across different relationships, and then their core body temperature. So it's funny that you bring up Scandinavia because, like, even when I proposed doing this episode, I was jokingly asking, like, oh, I wonder if Eskimos value cuddling more. And I mean, I'm not sure the real answer to that, like culturally or well thought through, but definitely scientifically, there is a correlation here. So we've gotten somewhere for sure. And the leader of the study says that although it seems like these instincts should be so far in our past, the invention of electricity was not actually that long ago in the bigger picture of human history. And so the link between relationships and temperature has not disappeared.
mm.
And this work fits into the broader theory of social thermoregulation. So, in humans, social thermoregulation extends beyond huddling, like the penguin behavior. The theory more specifically refers to what English speakers intuitively know as social warmth, that is, trustworthiness and social predictability, and it relies on and grows out of more ancient needs for physical warmth.
Psychological warmth. Like you need your sweater on your social brain to feel warm. That's kind of cute.
Totally. And because earlier in evolutionary history, regulating temperature was so crucial to survival. Like if you think about it, other than breathing, regulating your body temperature is like the most important thing your body does to survive. And because it was such a big part of our brain, that was the part of our brain that was reused when social thermoregulation evolved. Neural areas in our brain show overlap between social interaction and then literally our body temperature.
That's crazy. Okay, so I understand the link now. So it's not like you're feeling cozy so your body gets warmer. It's like those pathways were just reused by the evolutionary system.
Yes.
To feel warmth psychologically and physically. That's crazy.
And
wow.
I mean, I'm still trying to wrap my head around this, but like I think an example that really helped me was when you look at infant survival. So you know how they do all those tests of like infants and mother bonding and like an infant feeling cold or wanting to be held and like if the mother is there and if the infant is forming a secure relationship, attachment, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
There's an element of that is literally just like physical temperature that they've measured. Studies where researchers observe an infant being left by the mother, like, you know, the mom walks out of the room, the infant's skin temperature drops, and then they'll have a stranger come in, but the infant skin temperature stays the same unless it's the mother that comes in. And then their skin temperature returns to baseline.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know, that's kind of weird.
Our brains are so complicated. Yeah. And so this made me think of attachment styles, obviously, because you form your attachment styles when you're a baby. And whether that is anxious, secure, or avoidant affects a lot of us as we move on later in life. And in a separate study, they found that people tended to think more of their loved ones in artificially cold conditions compared to warmer temperatures, but only if they had a secure attachment based on past relationships. So if you had a secure attachment, I mean, this is me making the connection, not the scientist. I'm like thinking about that infant study, right? Where it's like, okay, if you have a strong relationship as an infant with your mother, it's because you have a secure attachment. Part of that is just like body heat. And like we've also talked about in other episodes, how important it is just for like that physical contact between mother and child. That also, it's like all connected. It's not just mental. Do you feel nurtured and emotionally cared for? It's also like physically. Is your body like keeping you warm? Or are you shivering in the cold, you know?
Wow. This makes me feel like cupping season is so much deeper than just getting somebody. In the winter months, it's like a psychological survival. We're primed.
Yes. I mean, literally, there was this quote from this neuroscientist who studies this who said, since thermoregulation is so tied to our evolution, it's still intrinsically pleasing for us to press our bodies against each other, even when we don't need to. Here's some scientific basis for why everybody should cuddle more.
I was going to say, this is why we like sleeping next to people.
Right. Yeah, so I found that to be super fascinating. And then the last factor, which we've kind of touched on as well already, is the situational factors, right? So around the holidays, it's just more likely that we feel pressure to be in a relationship because of messaging from like the entertainment industry, advertisers, social media, friends, family. And the thought of having to go to a family gathering or a holiday party alone where you're going to get a lot of questions definitely causes a lot of stress for people. And that's like another reason why people seek out relationships. And so, I mean, that feels obvious, but I was more curious with this situational thing about the summer peaks because like from a biological, evolutionary, psychological perspective, there doesn't seem to be as much reason for the summer peaks. But then I was thinking with the situational factors about Love Island, Singles Inferno, and how a lot of those dating shows are like filmed in the summer months. And like everyone's obviously a hottie in a bikini or whatever, but the vibes are just party like spring break. And I found this article that was saying like, do you really think it's a coincidence that all those shows are filmed in the summer? Of course not. That is psychology working on us because we associate the summer to be this like carefree and reckless time. And when you watch shows like that, it furthers that association, but also like it excuses the behavior of the people on screen if they're behaving a little horny or whatever.
Yeah, you would think that that means that they're just hooking up, like not getting together, because that's messier. Like when I think spring break, I don't think like I'm gonna find myself a boo. I'm thinking like just bouncing around from person to person.
Yeah, totally. I mean, my takeaway from the earlier research about the two peaks of this is summer. Like they were looking specifically, obviously, at pornography, prostitution. And yes, they were looking at dating app behavior. But like to me, someone searching on Google for like dating app names is different than someone declaring their relationship status on Facebook, right?
100%.
And like the Facebook data showed that that was really peaking in the winter and not in the summer. So I think of summer as like, yeah, people are looking to hook up. but they're not necessarily hard launching their relationships.
Mm-hmm. They're on the prowl in the summer and then
They're on the
locking it down during
prowl.
cuffing season.
Exactly. And it's so funny to me that we see that reflected in movies and media. All of the like reality TV shows, that's what I think about when I think about shows set in summer. And then, of course, when you think about like winter vibes, winter movies, you think Hallmark, you think Christmas rom-coms. And all of those are focused on meeting the parents, like kind of these more serious milestones. And everyone's wearing sweaters instead of swimsuits. So the vibes are definitely very different.
Yeah. So it's funny if you think about it from like the summertime as you're on the prowl, cuffing season is when you get together, because I actually found data that the relationship timeline has extended so much in the past 10 years, 10 to 20 years because of dating apps. Meaning that like the time from when you meet to like when you're in a relationship to when you're living together to when you get married has drastically extended from where it was even in the 90s. So I wonder if it's just in the summer, especially now, we're like, oh, it's going to take me however many months to actually lock somebody down for when I need to during cuffing season. So we're going to be out there prowling.
So your study found that like people are just slowing down the speed at which they move to the next relationship stage, essentially.
Yeah. So basically, in past decades, it was about 1 to 2 months of knowing somebody before it would get romantic. And there's been a whole other month tacked on since the 2010s for when it turns romantic.
Wow.
And then from romantic to moving in. So since the 90s, people have lived together sooner. So it's usually like less than 2 years into the relationship. And previous to that, you usually moved in when you got married. So the data is like not that interesting prior to the 90s. But since the 2010s, people get married over 5 years into the relationship, where in previous decades, they got married 3 years into the relationship. So going from even romantic 1 month later to moving in 2 years in, and then 3 years after that getting married is very different than what it used to be.
That's so interesting. I wonder why. Is it just because you feel like you need to be more sure and you have more options? Whereas before, if it was going well, you were like not really looking over your shoulder to see what else was out there?
Yeah, I actually looked into this because one of the things that I was curious about was, are relationships formed during cuffing season more or less successful than other times of the year? And I wasn't able to find any correlation with time of year. I also looked into if how you meet the person affects that. And it doesn't. I'll talk about the details in a second, but the only thing that does matter for relationship satisfaction is age. So the younger generation, so the people that are extending their relationship into like the 5-year mark before getting married, are actually overall way less satisfied with their relationships in general than previous generations. And it is not correlated to dating apps or anything specific, purely just a generational thing, which is very interesting. So I don't know if it's maybe like you want to be more sure, and so that's why we're waiting longer, or if you're just not quite as happy as you think you should be, and so you're waiting.
It makes sense that it's impossible to find true correlations because there's like so many factors. For me, I'm also thinking like social media and the rise of that. Like if everybody's on social media only portraying the bright, shiny parts of their life and their relationship, you know, and they're not talking about the hard stuff, then you're probably comparing yourself to that and thinking, why doesn't my relationship feel like I'm head over heels 24/7? And then being like more skeptical or nervous if you don't feel that way.
Yep, exactly. I feel like it has to be a correlation with technology and online dating, even though like the numbers aren't really there to support that. The study that looked at relationship timelines was very specific on this is due to online dating, but the satisfaction one wasn't able to draw that connection. Apparently, there's been a lot of research in if online dating relationships are less satisfactory than like meeting in person. And no one's been able to make that link, which I think is really interesting. There's actually one study that I read that was specific to the LGBTQ plus community to see if their relationships were less satisfactory if they met online. And the author of the study hypothesized that they're going to be less satisfied than if they met in person. But actually, the hypothesis showed no significant difference in relationship satisfaction. And this is consistent with other studies. There is no method of meeting that could produce greater relationship satisfaction over another. The only variable is age, generational age.
Yeah, I mean, different generations have different expectations for love.
Yeah. The direct quote from the study is the younger generation tends to be less satisfied with their relationships. I always feel like I hear that it's because we just have so many options at our fingertips. Yeah. And so it's the paradox of choice argument. And I feel like that's probably true.
Yeah, totally. On the one hand, I kind of feel that way about like life in general. Like I feel like older generations are just more satisfied with their lives in general versus younger generations. And obviously there's like a million factors as to why, but
Hmm.
I certainly feel like us millennials were raised to believe that we deserved some sort of incredible special life that only now as adults we're finally realizing like is not the promised land.
Yeah,
And I just feel
totally.
like people were more realistic, you know, because what is satisfaction? It's just the difference between your expectations and reality. So it could
Mhm.
be that like the reality is actually the same across generations. It's just that our generation was taught to expect so much more.
Yeah, definitely. I think the expectation setting is a huge piece of it. But I also wonder even if the relationship isn't of higher or lower quality if you met them online, just like the act of going through the apps and being on them is what makes you less satisfied with it.
The apps suck. Yeah.
The apps suck. But you know, like, oh, if this is over, I could just hop back on. Or like you have the what ifs of all the other people that you swiped on or like were maybe half talking to in a way that you, by virtue of even going through that process, it opens up this can of worms in your mind that aren't opened up if you just meet somebody in person.
Yeah. We've now just shared that cuffing season is real. Like, I wonder if you'd have better luck looking for a relationship in the winter than the summer. Like, if you have a better chance of success, if your goal is to stay in a long term relationship.
Well, I have some numbers from Hinge that
Oh,
I can share.
perfect.
Okay, so Hinge polled 1,000 of its active users and asked them which months they're most interested in finding a casual hookup, a date, or a relationship. And so they found that men are 15% more likely to be looking for a relationship in the winter than any other season. Just-
Oh,
yeah, so get on the apps in the winter, ladies. While women are 5% more interested in being committed during those months. So it's like significantly more interest from men. I think probably if I had to guess, it'd be because women are like pretty baseline interested in a relationship,
mm-hmm.
would be my assumption on that. However, in the spring and summer, men are 11% less likely to want a relationship, whereas women are 5% less likely.
Okay. So this reinforces the like summer hookup versus winter get cozy and cuff up.
Yep. Yep. And also in 2019, dating.com also surveyed their users and they showed a 30% increase in overall platform activity between November and February.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so like basically, as long as you put in a lot of effort, because I feel like online dating, my experiences with it prior to meeting my now husband, it's exhausting. Like, there's no way you have enough energy to do it all year round. So if you just like focus your efforts on the winter when you've got nothing better to do anyway, you're more likely to have success.
You will have more success during cuffing season. It is
Yeah,
statistically true.
that's crazy.
But it also has like a little bit of a benefit. It said that those that reported feeling lonely in the fall and winter, 60% of those people are actively using online dating to alleviate anxiety and sadness, which is
Wow.
weird because I thought that would, I mean,
I thought it
I
would
associate
increase
that
it.
with anxiety. Yeah. But no, they're trying to alleviate that.
Hmm. Okay, so I feel like what you're saying with all these dating app statistics is like cuffing season is actually a good thing. We should all get on the apps if we're looking for a serious relationship. But it's interesting because when I was doing my research, I found this survey that said Gen Z people were kind of against it. And so in my mind, I was
Mhm.
like, oh, like, is this a good or a bad thing? I guess I could see it either way. Like, the survey that I saw was that in 2023, they surveyed 2,000 people, and 57% of Gen Z respondents said that they were looking for a serious relationship no matter the season. And nearly half of all respondents said they do not participate in cuffing season because they believe it is an outdated narrative. Then the article proceeded to say, here are some red flags if somebody is trying to get you in a relationship just because of cuffing season.
I didn't know it was like that pervasive in the culture.
I know. The example was like, if an ex comes calling and it's near the holiday season, maybe question his motives. I was like, what? What the hell?
Thanks for that. I would have never guessed.
I
Wow. Thank you,
know.
article.
So
Really
funny.
dodged a bullet with that one.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I was like, I don't think most people participating in cuffing season are like re-hooking up with their exes just to have a plus one to bring home for
Yeah,
the holidays.
no, I don't think so. That's so funny though. I didn't know it's become like such a thing that you would have to be countercultural about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of like the think pieces that I was reading on cuffing season were giving a similar vibe of like, don't feel pressured. Like a lot of the downsides of participating in cuffing season, if you're doing it very intentionally, is the comparison syndrome. You see everybody else getting together and then you start to feel inadequate. And then you might settle for a relationship that's not actually good for you, or even like a toxic relationship just because you want
Mm-hmm.
to jump into something. So there are a few psychologists warning against this comparison phenomena. But I was also seeing a lot of stuff about like how it's actually a really good thing to participate in it, especially if you have seasonal depression. So Saba Lori, who's a licensed marriage and family therapist, said, we're less prone to go out or engage in activities that would typically produce feel-good hormones like serotonin and oxytocin during the colder months. And so because of that, it's not unusual for folks to consciously or subconsciously seek partners to make up for that deficit. And she sees this as an actual like positive thing to combat seasonal depression. So I don't know, maybe if you're feeling those winter blues, it's not a bad idea to get out there on the apps.
Yeah, the warnings are more just against taking it to the extreme. But like, yeah, if you can find a boo, why not? Like, it sounds great.
Not?
Cuddle, go get your body temperature up.
One downside that I saw, which I thought was really funny, because again, I don't associate cuffing season with hookups, but apparently so many people do that there was literally an article about how to handle the downsides of cuffing season, which is like not setting your boundaries correctly and how you can erode your mental health and your confidence if you don't set strong boundaries about what you want and don't want out of this seasonal relationship of yours. Like if the people are on different pages about what the relationship is.
Like if one person is looking for a serious relationship and the other's just trying to hook up until spring.
Yeah. I can't believe there are like think piece articles about how to handle this, because I genuinely did not know that this was a short-term solution. But do you know anyone who's gotten together during cuffing season and like say that they've done it during cuffing season?
I know a lot of people who got together during COVID season. Which now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like the factors with COVID are very similar to the psychological factors around cuffing season.
Yeah, that's so true. A prolonged winter.
Exactly. Like I moved to Kenya in 2019. So I was out of the country when COVID hit. And of course I had stayed in touch with my friends, but obviously more like long distance. And I wasn't as abreast of what was going on in their lives. And then I felt like I literally moved back to the States and all of my friends were in serious relationships. And prior to COVID, they were all single.
Wow.
Truly, COVID had remade my friendship landscape. All of a sudden, everyone was like talking about engagement. And a lot of those friends met their significant others on dating apps right when COVID was kind of starting. So do you remember how there was advice about, I think it was called like find your bubble?
Oh, like the people that you were going to see, but it was okay because you're all in a bubble.
Yes. Or maybe it was called a pod or something. But yes.
Yeah,
like,
the pods. The COVID pods. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So like all of the advice at the time was like, stay at home unless you like create a pod. And so I think what happened is people met each other on the apps. Then COVID hit and it was like, oh shit, like if I want to keep seeing you, I guess it's only you. Like talk about reducing choice, right? Like now you're in a pod together, literally for health and safety. And I think that really sped up a lot of people's relationships.
Yeah, that literally happened to me.
Wait, what? You got in a relationship because of this? Because of the pod?
No, I was like sleeping over a guy's house the day New York City shut down when COVID happened. So there was like no subways running. There was no taxis. And he lived in Hell's Kitchen and I lived on the Lower East Side. And I didn't want to like walk my ass all the way down Manhattan. So I literally stayed at his house for like 3 weeks.
Wait, you went from one night stand to 3 weeks?
Yeah.
So funny. Damn. Yeah. But it didn't last for you, clearly.
No, I yeeted him out of my pod pretty quickly. So.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah. I wonder if my friends are going to listen to this who got into relationships during COVID. And like, I mean, nothing wrong with it. But now you know if you had psychological factors influencing your decision.
It was biology.
It was biology, yeah.
All right. Well, to all of our listeners, we wish you a very happy, fruitful, successful cuffing season. Send us your cuffing season stories.
Oh, yes. I would love to hear those. And hopefully everybody gets a little loving and a little cuddling. All right. Bye.
Bye, guys.
If you enjoy the pod, we would love for you to give us a follow and rate us on Apple Podcasts, which helps us get the word out and reach new listeners. Our sources are available on Patreon, where if you choose to become a patron, you'll also get access to bonus content, our monthly book club, and our eternal gratitude.
If you'd like to get in touch or suggest a topic for a future episode, email us at everythingiknowabouttpod@gmail.com or DM us across all socials at EikaPod, that's EIKA pod. Thanks for listening and see you next week.